So, well,
Fantastic.
cool. Well, we will peel back all of the logistic layers of geography and
Uh,
who you are and all of these things that are a part of what you do, which is there's so much as a screenwriter and a poet, an activist and an artist, and just kind of going through the tapestry of word and picture. There's a lot of good going on. So let's get into it.
let's get into it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Let's dive right in.
I love it. So, first and foremost, I know we're getting into COVID fatigue, but I want to know, how did you survive that time period, that 4 year window?
Okay, so let's talk about that. I love that topic actually because that's where my activism started. At the start of COVID, in January of 2020, I grabbed my two children and ran out of the house on the 4th of January 2020. I literally, with just the clothes on our backs, grabbed my two boys who were two and five at the time. Ran out of the house. I had to get out of there. My relationship with my ex-partner had completely broken down, and it was becoming dangerous for all of us. So when the country closed down in kind of late February, I was living in a women's refuge with my two boys.
Yeah.
Um, so I spent lockdown living in a women's shelter.
Wow.
So that was my start of COVID, right?
Yeah.
Which is also, of course, when kind of the work that I do now, and I'm still working with that organization, who took me in. Um, I still give talks and help out and like help the women kind of through creative means come to terms with what's happening in their life. Um, so that's how COVID started
Wow.
for me. It was like, okay, and lockdown within the women's shelter was kind of doubly horrifying for us because obviously the come and go with like the social workers and the other women meant that lockdown for us wasn't like in a normal house or whatever. Lockdown for us meant 23 hours of the day I was stuck in the room with no kitchen facilities, not nothing, literally just a room that was about maybe twice the size of a prison cell with two toddlers that I had to somehow entertain for 23 hours a day. And then for 1 hour in the day, we were allowed in the kitchen and could like make ourselves food and whatnot. Um, so that was lockdown, which
Wow.
is a bit extreme. Like I
Yeah.
understand like that's a bit of an extreme kind of start to the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I worked really hard. I was able to work from home, thank God, in my old like corporate normal job that I had back then. And we got ourselves a house, like a little beautiful little house in the Irish countryside. Um so I spent the rest of the pandemic living on top of a hill overlooking the Irish countryside. So that was good.
Wow. Yeah.
That it went from really, really, really bad to like really good actually.
Yeah.
Um, so and then I was invited back into that same house that I had been living in to paint a mural for the children. And I made it into like a little like children's story kind of fairy tale
Yeah.
thing. And ever since then, every family that has gone through the kind of the house has been able to put like a little something onto the wall and paint something onto the wall.
Wow.
So it out of this like abject kind of misery came something really positive, came
Yeah.
something really like wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my start to
Wow.
that's my start to COVID.
Wow. So let's peel back the layers and go back a
Mhm,
little bit here. If I was to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students right now at career day, and one of the
mhm,
kids was curious and said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?"
mhm.
How do you answer them?
I make up stories.
Okay.
I get to spend my whole life making up stories and then writing them down and then inviting other people in and they get to play pretend. And we all get together and we play pretend all the live long day.
Nice.
And that's what I get to do for a living. It's the best job. It's the best job in the world. Like
Yeah.
I have the best job in the world. Um, and when I'm not making up stories, I get to paint pictures. Like I'm living every grader's dream,
Of
really.
course. Of
Like
course.
so, yeah, that's what I get to do.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
I wanted to tell stories.
Okay.
I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to I was obsessed with cinema. I grew up in India, so like cinema was like an event. It was a whole event. And cinema film. I always kind of knew like maybe not yeah, already in the third grade. Like before then I wanted to be a dancer,
Yeah.
but my knees didn't really want to be a dancer.
Uh-huh.
um but as soon as I realized that my physique was probably not going to make me into a ballerina,
Yeah.
um I knew that I really really needed to be in film.
Yeah.
That was the thing for me. It was always the thing. So I'm very much living my dream job.
So what was the film? What was one of the films early on that you loved?
So the Lord of the Rings. So
Yeah.
like I think so many people in my generation. I was literally talking to a film programmer yesterday, and he agreed with me and he was like, yeah, 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 of course, the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Lord of the Rings was when it kind of went from, oh, film is really an interesting thing. It's an interesting concept to that's it. That
Yeah.
this is it. I have to do this. This is who I am. um just the amount of attention to detail and care and love that went into those films, that went into creating that world. um yeah, it
Yeah.
was it was that.
So tell me how you got from India to Dublin. How did that become your path?
That's a journey. So I grew up, I was born into a very very secluded mountain tribe. At the time I was born, we didn't have running water, we didn't have plumbing, we didn't have, like, we had electricity but like not really. No
Yeah.
TVs in the houses, like nothing. It was high up the mountain in the Himalayas, and we essentially lived like, I don't know, in the 1500s or something. So the routine would have been like to get up in the morning and like milk the livestock and then like climb up the mountain to cut the grass. Like it was very medieval.
Yeah.
Then I moved to Austria when I was 7 because my mom's Austrian. And then I lived a very kind of very, very privileged upbringing with like, island hopping in the summer and holidays in our own vineyard and like we had a vineyard at some point. So I went from like a really, really kind of poor world to a very, very privileged, comfortable upbringing, as they like to say.
Yeah.
And then I got involved with some bad folks when I was 16, and that all kind of fell apart. And then when I was 20, I fell in love with an Irishman. That same Irishman whom I ran away from 8 years later.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I fell in love with him. I decided that yeah, I was gonna leave Austria. I was gonna move to Dublin with him. Um, and 2 kids, and 12 years later, I'm still in Dublin. No longer with the man, but
Yeah.
still very much in love with this country.
Yeah.
Ireland is a beautiful country, and it's yeah, it's my home definitely at this point.
So who's been a hero? You've obviously gone through a lot. Who's been that inspiration for you?
Um, there are many people who have been really inspiring. I think right now the heroes that I look to the most are the women that I work with.
Yeah.
So there's one very, very young woman called Thembi. She's South African, and she she came through the same kind of service, the same house that I came through. Um, and she just kind of landed on her feet, and she works in film now as well, and she's putting herself through college, and she's working 16-hour days and going to college and getting a degree and working in film and writing screenplays and, kind of overcoming all the hurt that she's been through at like 20 years old.
Wow.
So there are women that I really, really admire, that whose strength to me is just like, I couldn't do what you're doing, but you're doing it.
Yeah.
Um, Growing up, I'd say my heroes were authors, um, were people who were able to write stories. Um, there's an Austrian author called Vienna who spent I think about 2 years on the U.S. Mexico border, um, and wrote a story about children living in tunnels underneath the border. And obviously, those children, kids who have just horrendous pasts, and just live under horrendous circumstances, are forced to do horrendous things. Um, and he spent about 2 years living with those children, kind of underneath cities, in tunnels. So between kind of people who are brave enough to tell stories and people who have lived stories that are extraordinary, those would be the people I look up to the most, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as a creator, what was the first time you saw someone get a sparkle in their eye with something that you created that made you think, this is what I want to do with my life?
Um, Very, very early on in my career, I went to London. Actually, it wasn't that early. It was a few years ago now. Um, I went to London and I performed a piece of poetry that I'd written when I was pregnant the first time, called Nobody's Daughter. And it's a very heavy piece. Like, it's really, it's so miserable and it's really heavy. And it's about, overcoming the grief of being abandoned by your mother, and the kind of are really like so depressing. Oh my God. Um, Kind of a theme about becoming a woman, but yet not being able to be one.
Yeah.
Um, and this lady came up to me after, and I performed this, and I was all depressed about it. And this lady came up to me after, and she said, "Oh my God, what an uplifting, inspirational piece." And I'm like, "What did you hear? Because that's not what I said. That's not what this is." And she said, "No, no, 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 no. This is such a feminist piece." And I'm like, where is it a feminist piece? And she's like, because there's a line in there that speaks about, I'm not your doll to dress up and make pretty. And she's like, so it's about, you're nobody's daughter, nobody can control you, nobody can tell you what to do, you're in charge of your own body. And I'm like, okay, okay. For me, it's a very heavy piece about not having a mother. For you, it's a feminist anthem about not, you know say no to the patriarchy.
Yeah.
That was the moment when it clicked for me that the stories that we put out,
Hmm.
the efforts that we kind of put into making our art and making something that is a creative spark, we have zero control over how it gets interpreted. We just
Yeah.
don't know. We don't know what it's going to do to other people.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't care. Like, it doesn't matter, how you originally intended this piece to be perceived. What matters is how it impacts other people.
Yeah.
And I'm in such a privileged kind of position to be able to do that, to be
Yeah.
able to have people come up to me and say, the first time, like, somebody came up to me and like recognized me and say, tap me on the shoulder and, "I'm so sorry, are you Ronika? Can I talk to you for a second?" And it's like, okay, so clearly the work that I'm doing, has some sort of impact in the world.
Yeah.
And that's a privilege. Like, that's huge,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It certainly is. So, what is it that is your motivator every day to do all of this work between art and activism and being a mother and all of these things that you have to give yourself to, but you have to evolve too. What
Yeah.
is that collective odometer for you?
For me, I think the most motivational thing is the call of the extraordinary.
Yeah,
Um, because having gone through like a lot of different aspects of you know horrible things and wonderful things and difficult things, as everybody has, um, I'm not done yet. I'm not done. I'm not finished with the adventure. The adventure is out there, and the journey is very much still on the go. Um so the that feeling of there's something around the corner.
yeah,
There's something around the river bend. There's something, lurking. That's going to teach me something. That's going to be miserable, maybe. That's going to be exciting. That's going to be beautiful. That's going to make me fall in love. That's going to make me, cry. That's going to make me laugh. Um, that kind of hunger for the next thing that's yet to be experienced. Um, that there's so much. I have so much curiosity left. I have
yeah,
so much left to do in life. So I work with an elderly lady who is one of the founding members of nursing, of the nurses union here in Ireland. So she was responsible for creating a union for nurses, and she's this fabulous like woman, but she's 86 years old.
yeah,
And I work with her sometimes, and she's 86 years old, and she's blind, and she can't really move anymore, but she has so much curiosity left.
yeah.
Like if she could do another 86 years, she would.
Wow.
Like she would absolutely just be up for it.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's it. Like to
Yep.
see that fire that just never goes out.
Yep.
That's exciting. So if I'm lucky enough to get to 86, I mean, then I have another, 50 years left,
Yeah.
um, to see everything. So that's the it. That's
Yeah.
the it that keeps me going.
I remember a poetry class I had in college. They went around and asked everybody what they wanted to be when they grew up. And there was a
Yeah.
70-ish-year-old woman that was in there, and she was like, I never want to grow up. And
No,
that was it.
exactly.
It's that whole passion. It's wild. So let's go back to youth here, looking at your journey that you've been through in life. If you had a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you, you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
At 18 years old, I was living the strangest possible existence you could imagine. At 18 years old, I was dating, not dating, I was with a 35-year-old Hell's Angel,
Wow.
who was shipping me off to brothels every weekend
Wow.
while I was finishing high school, while I was prepping for law school, which I got into. I got into law school. I was accepted on a scholarship in law school. I studied for law school at 18 years old whilst sitting in a brothel.
Wow.
Um, so my 18-year-old self would look me up and down and tell me, girl, what are you trying to say?
Yep.
Because I'm a bit busy.
Uh-huh.
Um, so having kind of lived that experience, and like having lived literally, there were days when I went from the brothel to law school,
Wow.
and then from university back to the brothel. um so my 18-year-old self was very, very broken and damaged and sad and helpless and uh, intelligent, weirdly. Um, so what would I tell her? I'd tell her keep going. I would tell her this path is really, really weird that you're
Yeah.
taking.
Yeah.
And you're doing really strange stuff right now. Um, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. This is apparently what you have to go through.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine eventually. It's hard and it's traumatizing and it's horrendous. Um, but you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And she would very much agree with me. She'd be like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Girl, I know. So, yeah, she's good.
So let's flash forward here of everything that you've done and overcome and evolved into. What are you the proudest of?
Um, Other than my children who are always, that I physically created them.
Yeah.
But other than that, um, do you know what? I'm proudest of that 18-year-old girl. I'm so
Yeah.
proud of her. I'm so delighted with I'm so delighted with the fact that she grew up to be kind. I mean, I hope I am. I think I am. I hope I am.
Yeah.
Um, so I am proud of the fact that bad things didn't make me bad. I'm proud of the fact that my instinct is always to kind of help.
Yeah.
Still. So I am happy with who I am as a person. I have flaws, of course. I mean, who doesn't? I
Right.
am, there are so many flaws. Um, but I'm okay with myself. I'm really, really okay with myself. I'm okay with my future. I'm okay with my past, which isn't something that came very easily to me. So that's what I'm proudest of. Just to be able to sit here and say, yeah, I'm fine. And
Yeah.
that's an achievement because that took a lot of work. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm proudest of. There isn't any, like, there's no career milestone that
Sure.
I could achieve. Like, somebody could hand me an Oscar right now and I'd be like, awesome, cool. I'm gonna put that over there.
Yeah.
But it's not a thing that I like, that anybody should pin any self-worth to.
Yeah.
Um, those things don't matter at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say we get off this call, time machine pulls up in front of your house. You can go back in the history of human time and see one event with your eyes, and it won't affect time as we go forward, but you can
Mm-hmm.
merely watch an event.
Just
What would
watch.
you go to?
Um, in 1378,
Yeah.
um, the English were trying to storm a little French castle. Um, and it had two towers at the entrance, and the castle was situated uh, in like a so the Maron River curves around like this. It curves around, almost turning in on itself. Um, and the castle was situated within that almost island kind of position. And the English were trying to get up the hill to get to storm the castle. And one of the two towers that sat at the entrance to the castle was taken by the English, and the other tower wasn't.
Wow.
And the English held that tower for almost 3 years and didn't, even though the towers were right next to each other,
Yeah.
did not take any of the rest of the castle.
Wow.
Then the one of the lords that was living in the castle snuck out, disappeared completely. And about a week after that, the English left.
Wow.
I would like to know. And this castle is my family's castle. It still carries our name. It still carries our kind of symbols. And my family built that castle in the 1200s. So I would like to know, to solve this 700-year-old family mystery.
Wow.
I would like to know where Uncle Hugo disappeared off to,
Yeah.
because he was never seen again, and
Wow.
why the English left so shortly after his disappearance, and what went on. So I'm just being very selfish here, and I'm just trying to solve an old family mystery. That's all
Yeah.
I care about.
No,
all
that's
of big historical events. I don't care. I want to know what Uncle Hugo did.
See, those are the best answers when it comes to family and history. I will never hear that answer ever again. So
Exactly.
it's beautiful. At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, everyone that knows you in your different capacities, but you run the show. What's your
Yeah.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? I think it kind of goes back to the answer I gave earlier. I'm hopefully I'm a very kind person. Hopefully, I am somebody who is relentlessly curious. Somebody who's relentlessly empathetic. Um, and I really do mean relentlessly empathetic and relentlessly curious, because empathy, to be radically and relentlessly empathetic, and understanding, that is what I am, or that is what I hope to be anyway.
Yeah.
And to really, without kind of bias, to always run to the kind thing to do. um that's who I am.
Yeah.
I And it's not easy sometimes, because doing that also means being empathetic and being kind towards people who really maybe shouldn't be,
Yeah.
you know, empathized with. um but yeah, that's who I am.
So if anyone out there wants to delve into all of your creative endeavors, learn more, any of the good business, where do they go?
They go to my website, which is ronikamerl.com. They can find me on social media. It's all just my name. I'm not much on social media anymore, but Instagram is always like, it's a thing that exists.
Yeah.
But my website is probably the best way of contacting me. I can help out with screenplays or whatever. I have books that they can buy and read.
Yeah.
So yeah, my website is the best place to go.
Wonderful. Ronika, you're a force of nature. Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank
story.
you.
Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a
Cheers.
lovely day. Bye.